What up, Craig?
Chris? Oh, hey,
Tanner.
Craig. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Another week, another indie.
Oh, another indie.
Yeah.
Not
final
an indie feature.
one.
Not an indie movie, but a massive blockbuster Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. This is Milking the Franchise, the Cash Cow Chronicles, where me and Chris, we watch
movies. Oh, yeah, we do.
movies.
Yeah, we do.
Just let me know whenever you're ready for me to stop doing that drop.
No, I love the drop. I think the more sound effects we can get in here, the better. I think my goal with this is to become a radio DJ in the morning with like more fart sounds and, you know.
Oh, you want fart sounds?
Yeah, you got some? Love that. Air horn?
I don't think that actually picks up. I forgot.
Okay.
The Discord sounds don't get recorded.
People are gonna think we're losing our minds, dude.
But I'll find some. Don't worry.
Okay. Welcome to the show. We're recording some episodes talking about the Indiana Jones movies, and this is our probably final installment. It seems like the Spielberg and Harrison Ford and everybody is pretty uninterested in making another one after this. So next week we're going to be moving on to a new franchise, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end.
Yeah. What a great franchise, though. I mean, overall.
Oh man. Yeah.
Loved it. I'm kind of sick of indie though right now. So I'm ready to move on.
I agree. We've been watching movies, playing video games, reading books. I think we've been living Indiana Jones for a month, and I think it's time for something new.
Yeah, I'm still playing Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine, the N64 game. I was just playing it earlier this morning. It's a lot of fun. It's very much like Ocarina of Time in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Just like the way the controls are based and the puzzles, and I don't know. It's got a lot of good bits to it.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, high puzzle, low action. It's perfect.
Cool. I mean, I think that's what you love out of Nintendo games a lot. I love the little puzzles they build into those.
So on this podcast, we, like we said, we like to watch movies in the franchise and talk about how they get milked. Their IP gets milked for all they're worth. And all the different types of, what am I trying to say? IPs. The stuff they use the IP for. So the movies is obviously the big one, and a lot of the time we'll just watch movies. But Indiana Jones has all sorts of stuff, so we'll dig into that after the film breakdown for the last Indiana Jones movie, The Dial of Destiny. Yes. The hot new release. So another feature of this podcast is we have surveys that we want you guys to take and fill out and play along with us. We'll read your responses on the podcast here.
Yep.
And we have one from last week, which was Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
The much reviled fourth Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, everyone's favorite.
Yep. The one that saved the franchise. Isn't that what people said about it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it got another sequel because of
that. Did. You're not wrong.
So let's go over that right now. We asked you guys what your favorite line from the movie was. We had a tie between "You fight like a young man, eager to begin, quick to finish."
Great Kate Blanchett line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then "You're a teacher, part-time." Pretty good line.
I think I voted for that one. I just, I related to it. It hit me deep.
Oh, because you're a teacher, part-time.
Oh, yeah, part-time. Yeah.
We're going back to full-time soon.
Mm-hmm.
Podcast host, part-time.
Part-time. Mm-hmm.
All right. The favorite scene in the movie. We got the opening, Return to Area 51 warehouse, where they open all the boxes, crash into all the mysterious boxes. And you see the flashback of the callback to the Ark of the Covenant.
Yep.
And then that was tied with nuking the fridge.
Okay.
I voted for my favorite scene. I think looking back is the fridge nuke.
Is the scene that everyone hated the most about this movie?
Well, I just think so much of it is forgettable. You know, like there are some pretty good action scenes like while you're watching it, but then like nothing just sat with me. And I didn't, I took the survey like a week later, so by the time I took it, I'm like, that's the best scene.
Yeah, I mean it's very memorable for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny to me, we both picked scenes at the beginning of the movie, and I think we talked about it last time. It's kind of a downhill slide the last third of the movie.
Yeah, it's like I was gonna say like swinging on a vine through the forest.
Yep.
Sliding down a vine. The next question: what aspect was too much for you as a viewer? Just 100% of the vote went to swinging like a monkey through the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
Nuking the fridge gets all the blame, but probably the worst moment in the entire franchise right here.
I would agree. Yeah. And he goes faster than cars. We talked about it last week. He's swinging on branches faster than cars are driving.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I told you didn't know much about monkey physics, but
monkey physics. Is that what you did your thesis on in college, Tanner? Monkey physics?
Speaking of that, when we were in Thailand, there was like all these advertisements for, you can go like see the elephants and go see the tigers or whatever. And then there was something called Monkey School that was advertised. And we don't
Please tell me you went to Monkey School.
We didn't we wanted the mystique to stay as it. Like, we didn't want to know what Monkey School was, but we made jokes about it the whole time. Like, I don't know, like we'd see monkeys at the monkey beach and we'd be like, look at all these Monkey School dropouts just hanging out at the beach.
These monkeys didn't even get their degree. Yeah.
All they do is pose for photos all day, every day.
Yeah. They're the Instagram influencers of that culture.
I just love the thought of a Monkey School dropout.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So the next question here. Some people thought that aliens, including aliens in an Indiana Jones movie, like too much. I guess for some people it's only supposed to be religious artifacts, and I think I tied it in maybe with I talked about how aliens in some cultures, or some people see or think that aliens built like the pyramids and stuff like that, and that could be like a religious thing as well. Anyway,
and you talked a little bit last week because you'd been to Peru, and so like there's a bit of a tie-in to where they were actually where this movie was set. And that for me, actually hearing that, I think that made that a little less ridiculous for me.
Changed your perspective on the aliens.
I think it did. You changed my mind
too.
Tanner. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I thought it was too far when I first saw it. When it came out.
Yeah.
And then traveling the world really just changes your perspective on indie movies, in my opinion. And so I asked, is it too supernatural, not supernatural enough, or is it just right? And we both said it's just right.
Just right.
No problem with the aliens. In this next one, they're traveling through time.
I think we both had some problems with the aliens, but it was more like the decisions around that. I think including aliens was okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There was problems with the alien,
the CGI, the way the skulls looked. Yeah.
And just like how the whole ending happened. But who was the best vine swinger? We asked. Between Mutt Williams, Tarzan, George of the Jungle, and a monkey. And we got Tarzan, split between Tarzan and a monkey.
Okay, wow. Okay.
I mean, one could say that they're the same. because he was raised by monkeys, right?
This is true. And I will say George of the Jungle famously runs into trees all the time. So I'm glad we didn't get any votes for that.
That's very true. I didn't.
Like that's like his whole thing.
He's like the worst. Mutt's
he's the worst. If I had to
Jungle.
rank them, he's 4 out of 4 because Mutt did way better than George of the Jungle
on his first try too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so funny. And then we have to do the dumbest thing about Mutt. Everyone's least favorite Indiana Jones character, Mutt. So
I will say, Tanner, before we get into the Mutt-based questions, because I know there's a couple more, they humanized him in a way I didn't think was possible in this last movie, and I feel a little guilty for ragging on him so much, but continue.
Yeah, it's literally like the whole reason Indy's in the state he's in is because of Mutt, right?
Yeah, but we'll get to that later. In the meantime, let's keep ragging on Mutt. Yep.
Ragging on Mutt. Yeah, so the dumbest thing about Mutt, we got a tie between his motorcycle that he insisted to bring everywhere. Mm-hmm. He flew it across the world in a cargo plane and never used it.
Yep. He sure did do that.
I think the only time I saw it after that is he pushed it behind bushes to like hide it. But he didn't drive it.
Yeah, he also drove it on that fucking train platform. It's like, that's not where motorcycles go, homie. Yeah.
And then, so that was tied, that answer was tied with, his name is Mutt and he chose that for himself.
Mm-hmm.
He reveals that he chose the name Mutt for himself for whatever reason. You just decide your name is Mutt. I don't know. The other options were his switchblade, his cool greaser jacket, and constantly combing his hair.
Yeah. All good choices.
Absolutely. And now we get into the prompt section here. This movie, I feel like we had some good prompts here. The other ones, like the better the movie is, the less good these comedic answers are going to be. So Indy is afraid of snakes. What is Mutt's greatest fear? Shrinkflation. Okay, now you're gonna have to explain to me what that is. Is that like shrinkage?
No, I'm sorry. I feel like I just have seen it in the news a lot lately. It's where like Pringles will sell their product for the same price, but there's less Pringles in the can. So it's basically charging more money. I don't know. It was
it's like
for that to be his greatest fear. It felt like a funny phobia to me. Yeah.
So we got shrinkflation, running out of Dapper Dan hair balm.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
Just dropping his comb anytime.
Yeah.
I mean,
I imagine him like, you know how Indy always like reaches through the closing door and grabs his hat at the last minute. Maybe Mutt does that with his hair, with his comb. You know?
Oh, that'd be so funny.
Yeah.
Next question we got: if Mutt had gotten his own Indiana Jones spinoff, which was the original plan, I do believe, what would it be called? Some of the best responses here. We got Mutt Williams and the Guild of Gorillas. Mutt Williams.
A lot more vine swinging action. Yeah.
He just fully becomes Jane
Goodall. Yeah.
Mutt Williams and the Comb of Prophecy. A magic comb.
What I need to press you on that one. What where would the Comb of Prophecy, like what kind of relic is that? Was this like the comb that the pharaohs used?
It's the Comb of Nostradamus, of course.
Oh, okay.
Because wasn't he the prophecy guy?
Sure, I'm into that. Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure he had no hair. No. Then we got Mutt Williams in the last greaser jacket.
Okay.
Mutt Williams and the motorcycle mythos. So pretty much just went through the dumbest things about him and came up with
and made a movie title. Yeah.
All right. Besides swinging on vines with monkeys, what other animal could Mutt travel with in his spin-off movie? We got two answers that are very similar, but I'll read this one. Swimming with dolphins to Atlantis. What a movie. That would be.
It'd be great. He could wear like one of those old Jacques Cousteau, old timey. Well, he kind of did that in this movie, actually. Never mind. We'll save that for later.
So yeah, he was swinging with the monkeys in the actual movie. So let's see, we got him swimming with dolphins, swimming like a dolphin, like kind of like, doing the full full body up and down thing. And then we
hopping
got
out of the water, doing SeaWorld.
We
trips.
got marching with the penguins.
Good.
Flying south for the winter. Grazing with cows and running with wild horses.
I love this. I love this movie franchise. It's like Animorphs, but he never turns into an animal. He just hangs out with
I was
them.
thinking like The Animal with Rob Schneider. Mutt Williams.
Can you imagine if those two got a movie? Rob Schneider's character from The Animal and Mutt Williams.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Except Mutt would be able to do all the same things, but without transforming into an animal.
Right.
He just
does
knows how to do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of asked for some advice here. Are there any other uses of IP that we should explore for future franchises or Indiana Jones or whatever? We got amusement park rides, board games, and cell phone games.
Cool.
So we're going to have to go to Universal Studios or something.
I think it's Disneyland, but we have that budget, right? We've got that in the budget for a trip to Disneyland for you and me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, dude, we're raking in the cash from this show.
That's actually would be a fun if we were a popular podcast, be like, hey, donate money for us and we'll fly to whatever and we'll film.
You just want a free trip to California.
I just want a free vacation.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
A universal adventure. Mm-hmm. And then we asked to rate Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. We got 100%, a 3 out of 5. So cool. It's fine.
Yeah. It's better than it was better than I remembered it.
Yeah, I mean it's still entertaining. It's Spielberg and Ford, and it's got some dumb parts for sure. But
yeah, but I think also the last time we saw it, our expectations were completely unreasonable, and it's just there's a few parts of it that are so easy to dunk on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get into the fifth entry in the fifth and final in the Indiana Jones franchise. They say final, but we'll see. There'll probably be something in the future.
That's true. I mean, Disney owns this, so they're gonna find some way to keep it making money for them.
Although they didn't really make any money. In fact, they lost a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about that. But yeah, we're jumping in, and we should probably put this at the top. We do a little plot breakdown on each one of these episodes. So obviously spoilers on this one. All the other movies are old enough. I didn't feel like we needed to say that at the top. But this is a new movie, and we're going to talk about it. So if you want to go see it first, or I don't know, whatever you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in this modern day, people like to just listen to breakdowns rather than seeing the actual thing. I think that's kind of where we're at.
It'll save them $10 on a ticket and $10 on popcorn and $10 on a soda. So that's 30. You're saving money by listening to our show today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unless you want to subscribe and pay money, then you'll lose money on the subscription. But it's still cheaper than a movie.
Absolutely. We might get to go to Disneyland. So obviously, send us your money instead.
How many people would we need to subscribe? We don't have anything actually set up yet, but we'd probably need several thousand subscribers before we could do anything like that.
That's true. Yeah.
Especially with you living in Colombia. I mean, boy.
That's a big flight, baby. That's a big flight. Yeah.
All right, let's get into it.
Cool.
I gotta preface this by saying, I took notes in a dark theater, and there was no one else in there. But some of these pages have 4 words on it because I couldn't see what I was writing or where I was on the page, and I'm just I was watching and writing without even looking.
Some of my notes are overlapping, and so it's hard to tell which word goes with which thought. Yeah,
much like John Hurt in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I was auto riding through most of the movie.
There you go. Yeah. I knew you were an auto rider, Tanner. Cool. Let's jump in, man. We're end of World War II. So we see Indy again, and he's been captured by the Nazis, and it seems to be like as Germany is falling. So Hitler's been captured, and Indiana Jones has been kind of tied up by a group of Nazis. And we should probably talk a little bit about the CGI that they're using. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He has been de-aged to look like he's 20. Well, probably like 40 years younger, really.
Yeah.
Because Harrison Ford's in his 80s.
Yeah, they're trying to make him look like he looked when they shot like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Very much Uncanny Valley in certain. I mean, they did a pretty good job. Like, there's some angles where it looks totally awesome, and then other angles where it looks very Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say about that is his voice was like his 80-year-old voice. So like they didn't do anything to change his voice. He didn't sound like a young Indiana Jones, you know?
Yeah.
So that kind of took me out of it too. He kind of talked like a grumbly old man, but looked 40 years younger. Very strange, but it works okay.
It does work okay.
They said it at night. Oh, this scene is actually great. Like I was like, oh, this is awesome when I was watching it. Probably maybe the best scene in the movie, but just a little bit. I don't know. They could have recast him, or just like did like a young, like a River Phoenix kind of thing.
Yeah. They did that in the
$50 million.
Yeah, for real. So he's tied up. A group of Nazis are talking shit, and it looks like Indy is at his end. They've got a noose around his neck, and they're about to string him up. And Indy, he's being a wise ass. He's talking a lot of shit to these guys, and they start to string him up. And at the last moment, a bomb from the Americans or the British or whatever falls through the roof of this German castle, and it breaks through the floor, but you can see that it's like a huge warhead and falls successive floors down through this building, finally exploding when it reaches the ground. And that kind of springs him free, kills a bunch of the Nazis, and he's able to kind of escape out of there.
Yeah, he's being hung while this giant bomb goes off. It's definitely like one of the like nuking the fridge, like indie moments kind of thing, where it's like this crazy just set piece. It's pretty good. Not quite nuking the fridge bad.
It's great though. It's a great start to this movie. He escapes out of the castle. He's chasing after this like spearhead, this like lance from back in the day.
Yeah, it's the one that and I'll talk more about this lance later, hint.
Ooh,
but it's supposedly the lance that like it drew blood or pierced Jesus on the cross or something. Which
I heard it was the lance that Sir Lancelot was named after.
He had a lot of them.
Yep. So he escapes. He steals a car to escape, and very quickly a couple German officers climb into the back thinking he's just another Nazi. And so he starts driving off. And there's a pretty great chase scene. One of my favorite parts of this movie, I think, was the chase scenes. I think they did it better even than the old movies. The chase scenes in this movie are incredible. And he ends up like climbing out into the sidecar of a motorbike, and the motorbike goes off the rails. There's explosions. There's Nazis dying. And they take the motorbike down to a train. And we've also gotten this one other little piece of information. Indy was there with this other guy who was out in the forest. He didn't go into the castle to try and retrieve the lance because he's like a real archaeologist, one who doesn't fight bad guys most of the time. And he's been captured. Do you have anything else you want to hit on that part of the opening?
No, his name is Basil Shaw.
There we go.
That's
Basil.
The character's name. Toby Jones, a great character actor. Love that guy.
What's his name?
Toby Jones.
Toby Jones. Okay, yeah, he was great in this.
He's very recognizable face,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Toby and Basil, those are like two of the most British names I could think of off the top of my head.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy's got that meek Basil. British professor look kind of nailed down.
Yep.
Yeah, so they climb onto a train, and it's a Nazi train. Everyone knows that Hitler has gone down, and they're kind of like escaping this war zone at the castle where they were at.
And they've got the train is full of like stolen historical artifacts and like treasure and wasn't that a thing where they were like stealing paintings like and all sorts of artifacts like that in real life?
I think that was a real thing, yeah. Which makes Nazis the best bad guys for these movies, and it's why they keep going back to that well. So Indy kind of like he's climbing around in the train. He doesn't know that Basil's there yet, but he does find the lance, and as soon as he looks at it, he recognizes that it's a fake. It's not the real artifact that they're there for, and so he kind of decides, all right, we gotta get off this train. Walks around and ends up getting chased by a bunch of Nazis who recognize him as an American. And so there's a great chase scene on the train, all those classic tropes, like up on the roof of the train, going through the dining car, a lot of those sorts of things.
There's a lot of scenes. He keeps he'll get in the, like you said, the motorcycle. He goes into one train car and nobody recognizes him as they just think he's another German because he's dressed up like a German soldier.
Yeah.
Or maybe a higher up or something like that. So every time he enters a new room, they don't recognize him, and then they realize, and then they chase after him. Then he enters like a new one, and nobody's aware. So he keeps going into these new situations and blending in briefly.
Yeah.
At one point, they notice him because he's got the suit that he stole off somebody's dead body. It has like a bloody bullet hole on the back, so they get suspicious when they see
and then he turns around and there's the same bullet hole on the front. I thought that was a nice touch. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even notice the front part. Nice.
Oh yeah.
I think I was writing on my notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he kind of in this chase scene, we get a cut scene to Basil, and we also meet the kind of the big bad guy for this movie, Mads Mikkelsen, the best bad guy for any movie.
Oh yeah, he is great.
And Mads is talking about this Archimedes dial. It's an artifact that actually has some power. He also has recognized that the spear, the lance head that Indy was after, is a fake. But he's like, but Hitler needs to hang on to this thing. This thing is like a real artifact with real supernatural power. So he's kind of like trying to secure that thing. Basil also recognizes the artifact and is like, oh, that's I didn't write down the real name, the Archimalethea.
Antikythera or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just figured we call it Archimedes dial. I wasn't trying to figure out what that word was spelled like in that dark theater,
So here it is. It's a real thing.
Okay.
It's called the Antikythera mechanism.
Okay.
And it looks sort of similar. It's like a weird circular thing with a cross in it, not like a religious cross or anything, but it's an ancient Greek hand-powered crank or something like that, or a dial. So I don't really know if there's. I didn't look too much into it, but I don't know if there's any mysterious.
You don't know if it's really a time machine? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I don't know where that part of it came from. If that was actually what people kind of the legend is of it, I don't really know. But it is based off a real artifact.
Cool. I like that.
Antikythera. Yeah.
Cool. The Antikythera, or the Dial of Destiny. Yeah.
The Archimedes dial. I like that.
Yeah, Archimedes dial. So they have a great fight on the train. Like Tanner said, this might be the highlight of the whole movie, is this opening set piece. Oh
wait. Sorry, real quick. So it's the oldest known example of an analog computer, but it's used to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance.
Oh.
So it was used to like map the stars and like I guess just like
that Archimedes was a smart little cookie.
Smart cookie.
Smart cookie, man.
Yep. Anyways.
They used the line a couple times, "To the victor go the spoils," which I thought was kind of funny. And eventually it ends up with a fight scene on the roof of the bridge, and Mads Mikkelsen and Indiana Jones are fighting over this Archimedes dial. And it looks like Mads has the upper hand. Indy has to throw him the dial because he's got a gun pulled on him. And then at the last minute, Basil yells for him to duck. And some sort of pylon alongside the train comes along and catches Mads in the face, and knocking him off the train. And so the Allied forces blow up a bridge, and Indy and Basil have to jump to this river down below. And they live. And then Indy reveals that he actually kept the real dial of destiny, the Archimedes dial, and they've got that with them there.
Yeah, I love just the timing of it. It's like, like the Allied forces are parachuting and bombing, and it's like the war is over right at that second, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
But that whole train scene is good. There's a couple moments that stood out to me, like someone who was on the top of like a machine gun turret kind of thing, and they bombed it right in front of Indy, and it starts just like going in a circle, like while shooting and blowing up everything in its path and shooting all the Nazis and stuff like that. Really awesome little scene.
Yeah, that was great.
At one point, he's running through the different train cars and locks a bunch of Nazis in behind him. And I think he says, "Too many Nazis."
Yeah.
Did he say that?
I wrote that down too. Did you see what he used to lock the door?
No.
He used the fake lance head because he knew it was a fake.
Oh, yeah.
So he left that behind, and that was a nice little intro. Again, it's sidecars and train chases. It's some classic Indiana Jones stuff. Nice kind of setup for this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do we go next? I think we flash forward now, yeah?
Yeah, we jump forward, and Indy's old now, and he's like a cranky neighbor. His neighbors are playing loud music, and he isn't having it. And he goes down shirtless, wrinkled, and like bangs on their door to tell them to shut up. And they're like, "No, we're not working today. Today's the moon day." And so
it's Moon Day, Pops.
It's Moon Day, Pops. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have flash forward to the day of the moon landing, and we get some other like Indiana Jones stuff. Yeah.
I think it's a few days before because they were still on ground, weren't they? I don't know how long it took them to get up there, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and we see that there's like divorce papers on the table, and Indy's drinking a lot. He's become a kind of a curmudgeon-y old man.
Yeah. So he and Marion, who got married at the end of the Crystal Skull movie, have gotten a divorce, or are in the process of getting a divorce. And it shows a scene of him as like, all of the other movies have featured scenes of him teaching a class with just all these thirsty girls and just he's like worshipped like a hero. And the classroom scene here is very much the opposite. He is like, the kids aren't paying attention. They're not engaging with his lesson. And he clearly just hates his job.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't know. They have some touches like this throughout the movie, and we'll come to more of them later. But I don't know, like it made it more grounded, I think, in like a really cool way. Like not everything's awesome when you're old, and you have to kind of like.
I kind of felt the opposite about.
You didn't like that stuff. Okay.
This was the worst part of the movie to me, where it's. Well, here's the thing: what Disney did with Star Wars was kind of the same thing, where they just made like the original heroes that we liked just old, disgruntled assholes that you're not supposed to like anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just like I don't understand why they have to do that. They did it to Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and whatever else. I don't know. I'm just kind of like.
I mean, I think you need
just because you're old, you don't have to be an asshole. Like, you don't have to hate your life and like be all sad and depressed. There's plenty of nice, happy old people out there. But yeah,
it sets him up to have a redemption arc. I think, you know what I mean. Like if he was still just swinging on his whip and kicking Nazis in the face for 60 years, you know, that takes a toll on a person, I think.
Yeah, no, it's fine overall. I'm just like, think of a different arc maybe. That's just kind of like, it's like basically what they did with Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
Very similar. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I just wish Lucasfilm hadn't been sold to Disney, I guess overall is what I'm mad about.
Okay.
Anyways,
I think it makes the ending of this movie so much more powerful, but we'll get to that at the end.
I did get a little emotional, yes.
Yeah. But
anyway, nobody's paying attention in class except for one person.
Yeah.
And this is you find out Helena Shaw.
Yep.
Or Wombat, as he calls her.
Do you think that's also a dog name?
I was gonna ask you either Wombat. Wait, was it Wombat? There's someone else Wombat. That I was wondering if there was if that was the dog's name. Was it?
Wombat would be a good dog name. I'm on board.
Oh, it was Teddy that I was thinking about. We'll talk about it later. I was like, I think Teddy's a dog name.
Sure.
But Wombat could definitely be a dog name. Yeah.
Yeah. But Wombat is played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the Fleabag lady.
The Fleabag herself.
Yeah, the fleaest of bags. And I liked her in this movie quite a bit. I thought she was a nice addition, and especially compared to Mutt Williams in the last one, I think she was grounded and her acting was great and was like a nice foil for Indy. But she sits in on one of his classes, and we find out pretty quickly he's retiring. And so she follows him across the street to a bar because, like Tanner said before, he's kind of drowning his sorrows and drinking a lot. And she starts to introduce herself, and he goes, "Whatever I did, I apologize." He just doesn't care, and he's just kind of over everything. He's just full curmudgeon mode at this point in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they sit down, and she tells him who she is. She was the one in class just like answering all his questions. So she actually knows a lot about the same stuff that he knows. It's the daughter of Basil, who was in the opening scene.
That's
did you
right.
Say that?
I don't think I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So he knew her when she was a child. And she starts talking about the dial again, and that she's kind of chasing it. And it was revealed that her dad kind of got obsessed with it and drove him a little bit crazy trying to find it and figure out more about it. Because Indy and him had a piece of the dial the whole time. So she's basically trying to find. Well, she lies to him, I guess, in this scene, and says
she sets it up like she's a aspiring archaeologist, and she wants to continue her father's work and try and put this dial back together because that will like kind of fulfill the destiny of their family or whatever.
Fulfill what her dad couldn't do, and
So Indy goes, why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy? And she responds, wouldn't you? So it's like that's kind of the setup that we get at that point.
And that's kind of exactly what happened in The Last Crusade, no?
Yeah, no, it is.
He started chasing the thing that his dad was obsessed with. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like,
so it's a relatable
little callback there.
Little callback for sure. We get a quick shot in kind of in here. We'll get to the library in a second, but we get a quick shot of Mads Mikkelsen, who has apparently not only survived his run-in on the train, but he has continued to. He's become like a super famous like physicist type guy, and he was instrumental in helping with the moon landing that's going on. And so he's also kind of a dick. He makes some weird comments to kind of this black butler that brings some food in. And then we've also got the guy from Narcos. Do you know that actor's name? The blonde guy with a mustache?
I love that guy.
He's great.
What is his name?
Okay. We'll look it up in a minute, but Mads has two little henchmen, and one of them is that guy, and then there's just this like
Boyd Holbrook.
What is it?
Boyd Holbrook.
Boyd Holbrook. Okay. And then just this like meat machine of a man, just a Hulk. And so that kind of sets up the villains that we're going to see through the rest of the movie.
Like just like the whole time, I don't think he says anything in the entire movie.
Yeah,
he's just like this massive guy. I think he was in what's that superhero show? Potentially, maybe I'm wrong about that.
Big guy. Is that what it's called?
I think it's called Big Men. Yeah, Big Men. That's what.
Big Men.
They got all the that guy. Men. Yeah. I thought it was the guy from what's that Academy show, Superhero Academy or something on Netflix.
I don't know. I haven't seen that show.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's not the name of it. I'm just, but apparently it's not him anyway.
Well, it's also not called Big Guy. So, but this
that's
dude
a movie
is
I'd watch.
Big dude. Yeah. So meanwhile, Indiana
These
Jones
are his henchmen, basically.
Yeah, exactly. He's got some younger henchmen kind of following him around.
There's some confusing stuff here too, because there's like one girl that's one of his quote unquote henchmen, but she's with the government, right? So am I getting too ahead of myself?
No. Yeah, there's also like a black girl. But yeah, you're right. She works with the U.S. government. She seems to kind of just be his handler, like kind of making sure that he gets what he needs and, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like trying to stop Helena Shaw. She's like trying to stop that, but through different means, I guess, right?
Yeah. Because we get to the library and Mads Mikkelsen's henchmen just start shooting people. Like they don't want witnesses.
She doesn't like that.
And she doesn't like that. So she clearly is not quite on board with everything that they're up to, but she is on the bad guy team and she's helping chase down Indy and Wombat.
Yeah. So I guess I kind of, skipped over that a little bit, but they go to the library at his work and he takes her in to show her the dial that he has.
Yep.
And then these henchmen are on their tail, following them into the library, like you said, start killing other professors, leave no witnesses kind of thing. And then they confront him in the library and ask for the dial, and she takes it and locks Indy in and escapes with the dial.
Total dick move.
Yeah. So he realizes then that she was lying to him, and he's got to escape here now. He's got to. What happens? He like jumps on a bookshelf and knocks all the bookcases.
He knocks all the bookcases over at his work. Yeah, real burning down the bridge on your last day of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the kind of thing. Like,
and I kind of wish I'd done something like that to the library. That would have been really cathartic for me, I think.
You go shit on your boss's desk or something on your way out.
Yeah. But all that confusion gives Indy enough of a chance to kind of get out of the room, and he tries to call the cops and let them know that there's been some people have been murdered at his university. But they the Nazis catch up with him, and he gets nabbed. Meanwhile, Wombat has the Dial of Destiny, and she's like escaping on the rooftops.
Yeah. And now the chase is on through the streets of, where are they? New York?
It looked like New York City.
Is that where Indy's always been? I guess so.
I was also curious. I have wondered that because in one of the movies, I know the plane took off from California to get them to Nepal. So in Raiders of the Lost Ark, they take off from the West Coast. But like this one is for sure in New York City because there's like a huge parade going on with all these skyscrapers and stuff. So I'm not really sure where canon has him as a professor. Yeah. I don't know if it ever tells us really.
Yeah, it looks like he switched schools in this one or something after a quick Google search, and this one is in New York City. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, it's on and it's Moon Day.
Yeah, it's Moon Day, baby. There's a parade going on. Huge effing Moon Day parade.
Is that what they called it at the time? Moon Day? I guess.
I don't know. This is way before our time.
Funny.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah,
so they take Indy in. They're driving through and they can't. They're trying to chase her down, but also they kidnapped Indy, right?
Yeah.
And they can't get through because of the parade. And then they back up and they basically get wedged into an alleyway by a taxi cab coming through and the parade. And they're like, oh shit, we're gonna have to go through it.
Classic New York.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm driving here. So they have to go into the parade or through the parade to get through. And Indy takes this as a moment to escape. He starts a chant, "We will not go." Anti-war chant. What is Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he kind of starts this chant, gets people a bunch of commotion happening, and he uses this as a way to escape. And he gets on a horse, right?
Yo, he sure does. Yeah. He tries to approach a cop to like report that he's been kidnapped. And the big Hulk man kind of neutralizes the cop, but so Indy steals the cop's horse. And we get like a horse chase through the streets of New York City, down, and then like culminating with this chase scene down in the subway tunnels below the city. And Indy's just riding a horse, dodging subway trains.
Yeah, I loved the scene.
It was so gripping. Yeah. Again,
it was pretty good. Like just like watching him run through the parade on the horse was awesome, and then down the subway. It looked like a real horse doing that too, but like it didn't look CGI to me.
Well, this movie was a documentary. It's all real.
I mean, like as far as practical stunts go, like I feel like that was one of the few practical stunts.
Yeah,
which I do miss. We've talked about the in the last week's episode with the bad CGI.
You can't be having 80-year-old Harrison Ford doing stuff like that, though. A lot of this stuff, I'm sure.
Oh, not him, but stunt doubles. It was always stunt doubles anyway.
That's true.
But yeah, he's like running head on with a subway, and then like just barely making it onto the like the other side of it, and then he's chasing away from the next subway on the other side, and gets off at the platform. And they're right there.
Yeah,
it's one thing with this movie is the bad guys are always right there. You know what I mean?
Like classic indie thing, though. As soon as they leave the temple, there's a bad guy there waiting for them. And that's
movie magic in general. Yeah. But I was thinking, I mean, he's like cruising on a horse, and they're just on foot running around.
Yeah, and how would they know which exit or which
platform to get on?
Yeah,
exactly. But we'll wipe that aside. How does he get out of this? I can't remember.
Oh, he hops on the subway car, and the doors close just before the Nazis and that CIA agent can catch up with him. So he escapes on the subway.
And then, so during that scene, which I kind of don't remember happening, but it's a huge plot point.
Yeah.
Some people get murdered, right? Like these guys kill somebody. Is that right? Or is it just back at the college?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
I
think they killed that cop.
Oh, did they kill the cop? Okay.
I think they killed the cop.
I thought he just like punched him or something. But
okay.
So Indy gets off the train car or wherever he's at, and he sees on TV that now he's wanted for murder, right?
Yes.
And there's some little scene there with a guy that's like they're both watching it on TV outside on the street, and he realizes it's Indy and says, "Hey, you're that guy," and he starts screaming. And then out of nowhere comes Sallah and punches the guy in the face. Our old friend.
That's right.
Who's also now driving a taxi cab.
Uh-huh. But he was the helper in Raiders of the Lost Ark, John Rhys Darby's, and it was so good to see him again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this wanted for murder thing. I feel like it was a little loose of a thing. He probably could have cleared his name pretty easily, but they assumed he retired because they showed him retiring. I don't think we talked about that, but they had a little party, like a going away party.
Yeah.
For Indy at the school, and then like they assume he just like murdered everyone on his way out.
There was a quick shot of him trying to call on the phone and getting his blood all over the phone handle. So how I understood that scene is like he was the one who left fingerprints, and it was his last day of work, and they probably thought he just went like a little crazy.
Yeah, I guess so. This is just it's kind of like the same thing where it's like, oh, look how crazy and old, and like everyone just thinks this guy is a piece of shit now because he's old. I don't know. It's just like I don't think Indy would have lost that much. He's too cool. They didn't have to make him like that. I mean, I get what they're trying to do. It's just kind of like I don't know. Either way, it's kind of a flimsy like plot point to get him. He has to leave the country now, right? So now he's like, he might as well go find the dial.
He also has to go find the dial. He had to leave the country anyway, you know?
Did he?
Well, he had to go to Tangier to catch up with Wombat.
I guess so. But that's another thing of how did he know where she was even going? She stole this item, and Salah kind of mentions that there's like this one hotel where they sell stolen artifacts, right?
Yeah, they do. They fill in a little there. I feel like Salah they use him to kind of fill in that plot hole.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
And so, now they're off to Tangier. And I guess it was revealed at some point as well that she was taking this artifact to sell it, right?
Yes.
Like she's trying to profit off of it. And I don't know when they revealed
it. They did have a flashback in this scene. So again, this is just from us taking notes in a movie theater. I think it's just a little less clear. And we'd seen Raiders of the Lost Ark like 7 times. So, but there's a flashback showing that Basil had kind of gone crazy and that he had told Indy to destroy the dial, and Wombat had seen all of that. And then I think it was Salah that said that they're probably selling it at this hotel in Tangier, and she's got some connections there or something. And there's a precious item like sale going on, like an auction. And so that's probably where he needs to go to track this thing down and track her down.
So this flashback is which one again? Was that the one with Basil?
Yeah. Well, I think these are 2 separate things I'm trying to describe. The flashback to Basil, and then also in his interaction with Salah, he kind of figures out where he needs to go to track Wombat down.
So in the flashback, it shows how he went and took the dial from Basil because it was like weighing him down too much or like making him go crazy a little bit, and he thought getting it away from him would be the best option, right? And he mentions in this, like, I believe this dial can predict fissures in time.
Yes.
So to me, that's like so there's like specific dates that they kind of that he had found that Basil had discovered somehow that are like, it's like big moments in history, right? Is that what it was? So
well,
like Moon Day is one of them.
Uh-huh.
The day that we landed on the moon is like a big moment in history that is like a fissure in time moment, right?
But it wasn't that day, right? Because it's like it's like a day or two later. They need to get.
That's why I was thinking. Yeah. That's why I was thinking like the Moon Day, quote unquote. It wasn't. That was like before they left for the moon, and then maybe it was like 3 days later that they landed on the moon. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm with you. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think those dates are all the dates that they had are like specific history turning points, right? And those are where the dial supposedly can like pick up on. Anyway.
Okay.
We'll talk more about that later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the way to Tangier.
We get that like red line, the classic Indiana Jones travel montage where the plane is flying from place to place. And we show up in Tangier. Wombat's there. She's selling the dial. And we also meet Teddy, her little buddy with a great little prepubescent mustache. He looks like a little like 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what was he doing there? I didn't write that down, but he's like playing.
So that's a little foreshadowing for the end of the movie. He's like learning how to fly a plane, but on like just like not flying it. Like he's got a little like
a little control panel,
like a control panel joystick thing, and like he's like learning how to fly a plane by like reading, basically, or like
sure.
Yeah, that's what that was.
Yeah. So Indy shows up and he tries to stop the sale. Thank you for filling that in for me. Indy shows up, tries to stop the sale of the dial. But Mads Mikkelsen's there too, and there's some other dudes that are clearly have more money, right? So Indy's just there to try and take back what's his, and that doesn't really play at like a black market auction, I would assume. And so the sale kind of goes south, and we get a pretty sweet little fight scene here. Mads and the Nazis end up stealing the dial. And then as they go to chase him, Wombat's ex-fiance, this heartbroken, is Tangier in Tunisia or is it in Egypt? I think it's in Egypt.
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, a guy from that country, like the guy who owned the hotel, shows up. And so they start chasing Indy and Wombat. And so we get this huge chase scene through the streets on these little tuk-tuk cars, and the Nazis are in like a Mercedes, and they're kind of racing through the streets.
There's a good scene at the auction where like Indy's trying to get I think he has the dial, but they're kind of like, there's a lot of like, I have the dial now, then it like slips into someone else's hands during that scene. There's a lot of like, Indy has it for a minute, then Mads has it for a little bit, Piper has it for a little bit. I like the scene where he like pulls out the whip. I think it's the whip, or does he pull out a gun maybe? And then everybody draws their guns on him.
That was great.
The beginning of the chase scene.
Yeah.
Tangier is in Morocco.
Morocco, thank you. Yep.
Yeah. But then there's the chase scene through the city, the tuk-tuk chase.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on that chase scene?
A little long, maybe, but it was entertaining.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of really long chase scenes in this movie. Like, I still feel like maybe it was a little long, but still entertaining.
I'll give you that. I thought it was very entertaining. I thought they nailed the chase scenes in this movie. It was like a nice, especially after like in the last movie, they were like sword fighting on the back of trucks in the jungle. And that was just so stupid and over the top to see kind of a more grounded, I don't know, like Italian Job style, like chase scene on these ripping little tucks was really fun.
The tuk-tuk chase scene was awesome. There's a lot of like switching tuk-tuks back and forth, right? Like he hops one tuk-tuk to another, and like, what even happens?
They're about to, they catch up to the Nazis, and they have Mads like in a chokehold. Wombat's hanging out of the back of the car because they've shot out the glass, and it looks like they're about to get the dial back, and then her fiance shows up, and there's a gunfight. And it just kind of comes and goes. It's a fun chase
like this
scene.
Mobster is like obsessed with her, right?
Oh yeah,
and
full obsessed.
She's probably just using him. Oh, he paid her bail, so he owes her money, but he's still in love with her, kind of thing. So it's kind of a goofy little. I don't even know. It's just like now the mafia or like the local mob forces after them too during the scene.
Yeah. That scene,
at one point they have like a kind of a callback to the boat scene where they like got wedged in between. They're being chased by a guy in a car, and the buildings close in, and then it's too small to get through, so it crashes.
Yeah, tuk-tuk pops through, but the car does not.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else on the chase scene? These were ones that I had a hard time taking notes on because we couldn't pause it,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think so. They're chasing Dr. Voller, Mads Mikkelsen, and he has the dial. So they're trying to chase after him, and just a lot of fun, a lot of hijinks going on here. But he escapes in a helicopter, and they're left in Tangier with a broken tuk-tuk.
Yeah, and no dial.
No dial.
Yeah. We get a quick.
Yeah.
We get a quick scene of them in a helicopter over the city, and they end up killing that black lady, the CIA agent. And so, like, oh, these guys are super evil. What are they going to use this time travel stuff that Basil had figured out for? And it kind of seems like they're planning to go back and rewrite the end of the Second World War.
Yeah, he talks about how Hitler failed, basically, and he's gonna. Well, I don't know if they reveal all this right now.
I don't think they reveal that quite yet, but
yeah. Okay, yeah. They're gonna go back in time and change the course of the war.
Yeah. We get a scene of so the tuk-tuk is kind of broken down, and they're sitting by the side of the road, kind of realizing that the Nazis have escaped, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. And the dial that they've been chasing after this whole time is half of the dial, right? Because it got broken in half by Archimedes in this old siege on Syracuse, and so they only have half of the dial, and the Nazis now have that half, but there's another half out there somewhere. So they figure they're kind of able to piece together where they need to go to find the instructions to the second half. There was some clues from that Wombat had found in her dad's journals.
Yeah, and they lost the journals, but luckily she memorized all 7 journals.
Yep.
So she knows exactly where to go. And that's somewhere near Greece, right? So they get a boat. What's that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like Greece, Italy, kind of.
Yeah, so Indy knows a guy with a boat. So they go there. That is.
So even though they've been fighting and stuff, they gotta work together.
Yep. Luckily, she knows how to do everything, and has all the stuff memorized.
Yeah. And knows a bunch of like coded languages and stuff. She's like she's got it all,
She's got it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get to his friend on the boat, and I didn't realize it at first. They didn't really like focus on it too much, but it's played by Antonio Banderas.
I know.
Very small, like just like downplayed role, but the Puss in Boots voice just all of a sudden
it gave it away for you.
Shit.
Yeah,
that's Banderas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like this boat captain guy. They get on his boat, and they go out and they're going to do some diving.
Yeah. There's a scene in. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say that this is another kind of one of those parts of the movie where they, I think they like hit some emotional levers that they hadn't really tried in the other movies, and so we get a little bit of background on what drove Indy to being this cranky old man. And apparently, Mutt had joined the military as kind of a middle finger to his dad, and he had died in the war, and their dead son had kind of had driven him and Marion apart, and it kind of led to their divorce. And it's like an emotionally affecting scene where he's kind of explaining this stuff to Wombat, or at least I thought so.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The thing is, Mutt was so hated that there is that part of it where it's like, oh god, like we're all glad he died in a way.
Yeah.
But for the character, it's like, of course he's gonna care about him. Yeah.
Yeah. He's off combing his hair at those monkey vines in the sky,
Absolutely. And she using God's comb, she asked Indy where what he would do if he could go back in time and change part of his life, and he said he'd stop his son from enlisting.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yep.
So they're kind of talking about what the dial can do. Yeah. And she mentions in this scene that the only thing worth believing in is cash. So she's still just like all about the money and trying to sell these artifacts and whatnot.
Yeah, she's like, they have her set up as like a very much kind of a gold digger, tomb robber, services to the highest bidder kind of thing. Yeah. but I think it works pretty well for her character.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so they get to their boat arrives at this dive site, and in the past, this boat had sunk. It had cleaved in half, so they'd found the bottom half of the boat had sunk into this deeper chasm, and it hadn't been explored yet. And that's where they need to go to find this book that kind of explains where the other half of the dial can be found.
Yeah, so it's the clue to the next clue kind of moment.
Exactly.
And they have to dive with like some old style diving equipment, which is like long tubes that go up to the boat.
Yeah. I think that's called
scuba.
Snuba with an N. Yeah.
That's right. And he says it usually prevents the bends. Usually. Something like that. It's like as long as you get back up in 3 minutes.
3 minutes. He's really insistent about 3 minutes. Yeah.
So they go down into this ancient shipwreck and need to do it all in 3 minutes and get this artifact out of there. But there's something preventing him from doing this. What is it, Chris?
Eels, baby.
Not water snakes.
Ocean snakes. Yeah.
I was wondering what the next, because we talked a lot about every movie has like a little kind of creature. There's snakes or bugs, and
there's scorpions, there's rats. Yeah,
rats. Yeah. So this one has eels.
Eels, yeah, and they are menacing eels, and there is a ton of them.
Yeah, and before they go down, so they see the eels kind of swimming in the water, and he's like, "What's that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's eels." And someone says they look like snakes, and he's like, "No, they don't."
No, they don't. Oh man. Yeah.
So they go down, dive down into the shipwreck. They find the little piece. When he pulls out the treasure chest out of the arms of a dead body, it breaks apart, and just a shit ton of eels comes out.
So many eels. Yeah.
And kind of like they're kind of nipping at him, and just mainly I think Indy's just scared because he's scared of snakes, and eels are an extension of that. Anything long and slithery, he doesn't like.
Well, and I feel like eels would be even more scary because they can go in 3 dimensions, right? They can come up and get your face.
Oh my God, you're right.
It's like so much scarier than a snake.
Worms too?
I don't. Yeah, probably night crawlers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, terrifying.
So he lights a flare and kind of like uses that to get his way out of there and like push off the eels. And then as he's headed back, he looks up and there's another boat coming. And you know what? It's probably them Nazis. They don't quite reveal it, but they like cut the cord of somebody, and that guy drowns. Like an auxiliary diver. But they make it.
That would be a
top.
Brutal way to go.
Oh God! No kidding. So they make it back just under the 3 minutes, and they don't get the bends. But the Nazis are there, and they take the artifact from him, and now they need to decipher this thing.
Yeah, they need to translate the inscription on this thing. Indiana says he won't help him, and they shoot Antonio Banderas. R.I.P.
Yeah, they kill him. Not much, not a lot of emotion for this guy. I mean, there's a quick shout out to it later, but he kind of just gets killed, and his buddy gets killed, and that's that.
Yeah. And then we get this scene. The Indiana and Wombat both understand the coded language that's written on this weird disc that they find inside inside of the treasure chest thing, or was it inside a book? Whatever it is, there's this weird like red disc with all these like symbols etched into it, and so both of them can kind of interpret it. And so they kind of like, there's this scene of Wombat walking around like explaining the inscription and like explaining all of the different historical connections and what this must mean. If Archimedes left this, it's got to be at this place, right?
Yeah, she's telling them what it says basically, and she is telling him for real like what's on there.
Yeah.
And Indy's like, how could you? He's thinking like, how could she be doing this, like giving away secrets to these Nazis? But she's got another thing in mind. and she shows him that she's got a stick of dynamite on her.
Oh yeah.
That she's going to use to get out of the situation. So during her little monologue, I thought this was a nice little touch. She just was like, she's like going like stream of consciousness, like, you know, she's like saying all this information, and she's like, can I have a hit of that? And takes the guy's cigarette, which she later uses to light the dynamite.
Yeah.
So another great explosion plan. They're just the plan to get out of this situation is to throw dynamite at it.
And it works. Yeah.
It works,
Make
of course.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah, so she throws it down, the boat explodes. Most of the people are okay, but they get away on the Nazi boat, right?
Yeah, they steal the little, like, I don't know, like motorboat that the Nazis came in on, and their diving boat has been completely rendered useless by the dynamite, so they can't even really pursue. But they do notice that if she'd been telling the whole truth, that their boat's going in the wrong direction. They're not headed towards Greece; they seem to be heading towards Sicily. And so, like, you know, something is another.
This is another hand waving moment because. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they steal the Nazi boat, and they're left on this boat that just blew up, right? Mm-hmm. And then it shows, like, way later, they're, like, cruising along on this boat for a long time, and they're about to decipher more of this thing here, this code. But somehow the Nazis see where they're going. He's just, like, they just show a quick scene of him, like, looking through binoculars, and they know exactly where they're going. But he has no boat to get there.
I don't know how they got to Sicily. Yeah. I don't think it shows it either.
This is like probably the biggest hand waving. It's just like all of a sudden they find out exactly where they went in Sicily without a boat and I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a few moments like that in this movie plot wise, which I don't really care about, but it was like some pretty big leaps.
Yeah. The bad guys are going to pop up, you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
So wait, is this? So yeah, on the boat right here, it's him and Teddy and
Wombat. Yeah.
Wombat, and they. I can't remember how they figured it out, but Indy figures out that this little piece that they're looking at with all the information on it is actually just another box, and the real information's inside. So he uses bourbon, which I think it's Maker's Mark, to light this thing on fire, and like all the wax melts, and
revealing like a golden disc.
Yeah, it's a golden disc inside with more information on it. But I thought it was funny because I'm pretty sure he used Maker's Mark, which is the one with like the red wax on the top of it. But then he
that's a nice touch. Yeah, and this thing was like red wax that melted off the gold disc.
And so it's like, his drinking habit made him realize, this is just wax.
That's right. It helped him discover
just
that
like
clue.
my Maker's Mark bottle here. Yeah. So they get
now we're in Sicily.
Yeah, and they need to find the cave of Dionysus.
Yeah, because that's what the little golden disc told them. And they're in Sicily kind of getting supplies to go up to this cave, and Teddy kind of sneaks off and gets nabbed by the Nazis, and they throw him in a van and drive away with him. And like he and Wombat are pretty close, so Wombat's pretty broken up about it, but they realize they need to go get to this cave of Dionysus before the Nazis do. Otherwise they're going to have both halves of the Dial of Destiny, or the Archimedes dial, whatever you want to call it. And so they've got to go get this thing first.
Yep. And then this is the scene where they show how they followed him. Oh, they're going in the wrong direction, so I guess I know exactly where they're going. And they where are they now?
Well, they head up to the Cave of Dionysus, and it's like, it seems to be like a tourist attraction. When they show up there, there's like a bunch of tourists looking around, taking pictures of the old architecture. And down below, there's this mysterious cave, and they head in there.
They gotta wait for like the attraction to close, so they're waiting around in Sicily till like nighttime, I guess, or the evening. And Teddy's kind of like, hey, I thought we were in this for the money. And he kind of wanders off and he like steals from another kid. He steals the kid's money and he buys himself like an ice cream or something.
Right.
And then he gets caught by the Nazis.
The Nazis. Yeah.
So he gets caught and they take him and they're like, oh shit, Teddy's in there. And so they steal a wedding car with all the cans
Oh yeah,
on
that's
it.
right. I forgot about that. That was how they got up there.
And they chase the Nazis again. Sorry, I keep saying Nazis.
No, I appreciate it. You filled in a couple more things there that I didn't mention before. But
then so now they chase Teddy for a little bit, or they basically just go to the cave and forget about Teddy. It seemed like.
Yeah, well, that was what I was saying. Like they need to get the other half of the dial before the Nazis do, right?
Yeah, and they know they're not going to. They're like, they kind of say like they're not going to kill Teddy. Like, they need him alive to keep us in the. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, he has seen the golden disc, so he has information that makes him valuable.
That's true.
Yeah.
And now it's like temple spelunking time.
Yeah.
Classic.
So they
indie.
get classic indie. We're the Cave of Dionysus. Like I said, it's kind of like a tourist trap. When the tourists have gone, they kind of climb over the fence and head down into this weird cave, and they follow the echoes to get like, I don't know, like the echo. It reminded me of a Zelda thing where you had to like listen to the sound and follow it as it got louder. But they follow echoes. They see like a crescent that is like shining through the wall. And so that's got to be the passageway to the next chamber of this underground tunnel.
Yeah. I don't really know exactly what happens in this moment here, except for that they kind of cross over a bridge. Little
foreshadowing.
A little bit of a cool atmosphere in here. You know, they're crossing over stream, and they come across a bug room, which I feel like is just a quick little indie moment. And then what happens? There's like some kind of like gas that escapes at one point.
Yeah, they get into that last chamber, and there's like a big, there's a big statue in there, and there's a pool in the middle of the room, and they're having a hard time breathing because there's a bunch of methane gas.
Indy says, "Don't breathe," and she's like, "Don't breathe."
Yeah. They kind of just wave that away. That you're not supposed to breathe methane, but we're in here anyway, so we're gonna figure this out. But this is, after all, Archimedes' tomb. And Archimedes is most famous for the Archimedes principle, which is where you put something in water, it rises. And so they put a bunch of stuff in the pool in the middle, the water rises, and that opens, like the floor opens up and lets them into the last chamber.
They're like, Archimedes was obsessed with water displacement.
Yeah.
I just think that's a funny thing to like be into. I'm into water displacement.
Are you obsessed with water displacement, Tanner?
All the time, you know.
Or maybe because
one of my favorite things
displacement.
One of my favorite things to do is to fill the bathtub up almost to the top and see if I can get in without it spilling over.
That's a really cool hobby you have there.
It's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
So they. The kid tries to escape briefly, and they get him back, so they handcuff him to the big guy. And they're kind of chasing them through this tunnel.
Right.
Into the tunnel as well, the Nazis.
You can see they're like one or two steps behind, so they're going through the same set of like little mini challenges.
Yeah. I can't remember what exactly happens right here, but at some point, the big guy and him just like fall off, or they have a little tussle right into the water.
Yeah, the bridge going over the river is kind of rickety, and the big guy is a big guy, as we established before. And so as they're out over the bridge, the kid tries to make a break for it, even though he's handcuffed to the big guy. And in the tussle, the kid steals the key to the handcuffs and puts it in his mouth. And then both of them, handcuffed together, fall off the bridge and land in this like ripping little current that's going underneath the bridge.
Yeah, and there's like a grate at one point, a little ways down in the water, and they kind of get hung up on it, and the kid like uses that moment to undo his handcuffs, and then handcuff the big man to the grate. So this is the last we see of Big Boy.
That was such a cool kill. I was really thought that was
a
dope.
good moment.
Yeah.
And when they fell in, by the way, Mads Mikkelsen was kind of like, let them drown. He just kind of like doesn't care.
Yeah.
And you kind of get a shot of his other henchmen being like, oh shit, like
that's my buddy. What are we doing?
I'm dispensable too, probably is what he's thinking. That's how I interpreted it. Like, oh, we're all just dispensable for this guy. Yeah. So Indy and Helena, Wombat, they find the tomb. They find Archimedes' tomb.
Yep.
By the way, is Archimedes like, you're a math teacher, right?
Uh-huh.
Is he somebody you guys talk about?
I have only... I mean, he did a lot of astrology stuff, you know, but honestly, the most I talk about him is the Archimedes principle. It's the water displacement stuff. Because
is that a thing that comes up in math? He's obsessed. Is that something that's a math thing or more of like a physics thing? Or is
it's more of a science thing. It's more like a middle school science thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they find his tomb. I don't think the Nazis have caught up quite yet. Right.
This is true. Yeah.
And they find the dial. It's on his body, but they also see that he's wearing a watch.
Yeah.
Like
and for that time, that's real weird because they hadn't even invented clocks yet. So the fact that he's got a wristwatch is pretty funky.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to say the least, that's like, if that's the logic it took them to figure out that that's a weird thing. So this is a cool moment for me. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like somebody's going to go back in time and then this is their body. That's kind of what at this point I was like, I thought Mads Mikkelsen was maybe gonna be Archimedes. Like he is Archimedes. Like he goes back in time and becomes like this super smart guy who knows so much about the future.
Whoa, that would have been
that's
crazy.
Where I know. Yeah. And so then I thought maybe that was his body in there because it was his watch. You find out later.
Yeah,
but that's not quite where it goes. But I did. I thought that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, and honestly, he wanted to be like a King Fuhrer guy. Like he could have done that back. Oh, we'll get there later. We'll get there in a minute.
And there's a little picture of a Pegasus on the side of the tomb or the grave or whatever. And it says this Pegasus has propellers, basically, which is like a little foreshadowing to like a helicopter or like a plane
or like a plane.
They interpreted it as like a Pegasus. I kind of like those little moments.
Yeah.
So you know that they're going back in time here, basically, in some respect.
Yes. I mean, they've been spending the whole movie chasing after a time travel device, and if they don't do a little time travel at the end, it would have been pretty weird.
Yeah, Indy always does the classic Indy moment where they pepper it in and let it happen just enough at the end to like make sure you know that it's a real thing.
It's that one little supernatural twist in the third act. Yeah.
Yeah. Like some knockoffs, you know, they might like go as far as to like make you think that this thing has magical powers, but never really show you, or like, is it or is it not? Indy's always like, definitively, this thing does have those powers. You know, it is what it says it is, always, which is I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree.
So let's see, the Nazis show up here now. Yeah.
The Nazis do show up. Yeah. So they're, you know, they have found the other half of the dial, and they have found this wristwatch, and they found the propeller blades on the Pegasus on the tomb, and the Nazis show up and start shooting. And kind of the only way to get out of there and save their lives is to give up the half of the dial. So the Nazis.
There's some moment here where he mentions something about math and how great math is, or something like that, and it made me think like there's an idea for a knockoff movie, The Mathematician. You know, we got the librarian, we got the mathematician. Yeah.
Such cool calculations in that movie, I bet.
Yeah, he had some exactly. He has some great some line here that I liked. He says, "History's greatest moment, its end," something like that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a little gunfight here, right? And Teddy pops out because
Teddy pops back up, saves the day.
Yeah.
And Indy takes a bullet to the chest. So he's not doing great. The Nazis have what they came for, and they end up leaving Wombat and Teddy and Indy.
I also thought at this point, so I'm going off on what I think was going to happen, but I thought Indy was going to just die, and then they'd have to go back in time and save him,
bring him back,
redo the moment or something like that. Like, yeah. Anyway.
That I also was kind of thinking he was going to die and they were going to have to go back in time to save him. But it doesn't really seem like the dial has that much control. Like you can't really pick where it goes.
In fact, it's revealed at the end. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. Like there's almost no control at all. It's just a fissure that you can go through from one time to another time.
Yeah. So the dates that they've been looking at for these times kind of link up their like coordinates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess they have to, it's revealed that they have to fly into the heart of a storm right at the right time on a certain day at the right coordinates to fly through the fissure in time, which I don't, whatever. I don't know why it has to be a storm. But the dial only works in that moment, apparently.
Well, I'll defend that because they did say it's a fissure in time. So it's like a thing. It's like looking at the stars. It's like there's going to be an eclipse. It's going to be here. It's going to be on this day. And it's like a tunnel that takes you from one time to another time. So it's not like a, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure where you can just go wherever you want. It's like there's one tube and you can go through it if you go to the right place. It's a little weird, but
I actually wrote down something about Bill and Ted during this.
Did you?
Final scene. Well, it did kind of feel like that. It's like, oh, they could just like go back in time and meet all these historical figures. Well, anyway, I was like, in my head, I'm like,
yeah, they do.
Is this where this movie's gonna go? Yeah.
They're collecting Abraham Lincoln and all the rest.
So this is where you find out. So they get in the plane, Mads, and they kidnap Indy because they still need him maybe to like help them get through,
Yeah.
And this is where you find out that Mads is a Nazi, but his plan is to go back and kill Hitler. Basically, yes. He's like, "What? When are you going to go back in time?" He's like, "Oh, I'm going to kill Hitler, and do the job, finish the job that he couldn't finish, basically, and he's going to become the new Führer or whatever." Which I don't know how
he saw all the mistakes that the Nazi Party made, and he's going to do it better.
I don't know how like he would just become the new Führer. Is that how that worked at the time? Whoever kills, it's like a king. You kill the king and you become the king.
I don't know. Great question.
Yeah, but so that's his plan, is to kill Hitler. And there's the classic kill Hitler scenario. You've heard about this?
Tell me.
Well, it's the time travel debate.
If you could go back in time, would you kill Hitler?
Yeah, and it's like, well, that would change everything that happened after that. Like, is it worth it to change history at all? The butterfly effect of it all, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's his plan, is to do that, which I thought was pretty cool. But you find out that all these, like the American guy, Boyd Holbrook, was learning German so that he could pose as a Nazi in the past, and he's just an American Nazi, I guess.
I didn't catch that he was American, but that makes way more sense. Yeah, he doesn't have an accent.
Yeah, he's got like a full Southern accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they kind of get loaded up onto this big, like, Nazi bomber in Sicily there, and they take off. Indiana is on the plane, and he's bleeding. And Teddy and Wombat are in hot pursuit. Wombat is able to catch onto the landing gear of the plane and get on the plane that way. And Teddy goes and grabs like a much smaller, like, dogfight plane.
Yeah, she full on like Tom Cruise is this,
Yeah.
she rides a motorcycle.
Yes.
Motorcycle, like as fast as she can, catching up to the plane that's taking off, and grabs onto the wheels and climbs in through the bottom of the plane. And she's kind of just like slowly creeping in and getting up there for the next little bit. But during the scene, she's like, Teddy, do you know how to fly a plane? And he's like, no, I've never flown a Cessna or something. And she's like, you've never flown any plane. But he figures it out.
Yeah.
It can't be that hard. Yeah. So he hot wires a plane, and this 13-year-old boy takes off following them in a plane. There's a good line where they're kind of talking about his plans for Germany, where Indy says, "You're German, don't try and be funny," which I thought was a good line.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember what the context was, but so the kid's chasing after the Nazi plane. They're trying to get to these coordinates. He's revealing his plan to Indy and talking about his plan, and Indy is like, he just realizes, and he says, "Continental drift."
Mm-hmm.
You forgot, you didn't know about continental. Archimedes didn't know about continental drift, so the coordinates that they predicted 2,000 years ago aren't going to be correct, right?
Right.
Which doesn't seem to actually come into play, right?
Well, no, I think that's how they explain away that he doesn't go to Nazi Germany, and instead he goes to the Battle of Syracuse in ancient Greece.
Well, okay. On that note, because later in the movie, I'll just say it now, Archimedes reveals that you were always meant to come here, and they say, "Oh, Archimedes made the dial only for the purpose of coming to that point in time."
Right, and helping them win the war. Yeah.
So that makes the whole coordinates being off thing irrelevant, right? Because that was always
right, it does.
That was always the only part, unless he knew that the coordinates were going to be off or whatever. Time travel gets very messy with that kind of stuff.
Oh, big
it's
time.
Really hard to.
I had thought, I was expecting like the portal to not be in the right place. Like
that's what I thought until they said
like
that
it should have been over Russia or something,
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I thought too. Like, okay, the coordinates are wrong. We went to the wrong time. But then it does kind of reveal that you were supposed to come here, and I made this to come to this time.
Right.
So then it kind of makes that whole
win this war. Yeah.
That whole part irrelevant. Also, how did they? Okay, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself.
Yeah, let's run through this last scene, and then we'll talk about because this is for sure like the most, I don't know, like controversial part of the movie. Because the Nazi plane flies through the portal, and it's too late to pull away because Mads realizes that Indy's right, and he didn't know about continental drift. We have no idea where this portal is going to take us. Turns out it takes us to the siege of Syracuse, which Indy had been talking about in the very beginning of the movie. And so they've got this huge Nazi warplane, and they just decide they're going to start shooting at all these ships who are launching like bows and arrows and like catapults and shit at them. And so the men on the ground
shooting machine guns at them for some reason. I don't know
for
why
some reason. Yeah,
started shooting at them.
Yeah. It seemed to me like they should have just landed, and it would have been really easy to be the leader there, and then you could have shaped world history the way that you wanted.
Right.
Like, just land the plane. But they didn't do that. They flew really low to the water, so all these catapults and bows and arrows and stuff could like take down the plane. Wombat sneaks up, saves Indy. They grab a parachute. They jump out to safety, and the plane crashes in a ball of fire and shrapnel. And at this point, all the Nazis have been killed. Right? Did I miss anything there?
The soldiers on the ground are shooting at them. Except, luckily, nobody shoots at Teddy's plane, but they happen to hit the Nazis' plane like perfectly a bunch of different times.
The engines knock out the whole thing.
Yeah.
It crashes.
That crashes and burns, and that's the end of them.
Yep. So now I think you can talk about what you wanted to talk about now that we've given a little bit of context for this scene.
Oh, what was I talking about?
I don't know. Just problems with this scene.
Oh, just that they said the coordinates were off, but then okay, so they parachute out of the Nazi plane before this happens. Him and Helena.
Sure.
And they parachute down, and then the plane crashes. They land, and Archimedes himself is kind of seeing these planes come in, and is like, oh man, are these things from the future? I've been working on this dial thing that can predict the future. And so he goes out to the crash site and the landing site of all this and meets Indiana, and he meets Archimedes. And this is where he kind of says, like, you were always meant to come here, some kind of like prophecy stuff. It was your destiny to come here right now. So that's why I was saying, like, it doesn't really make sense that the coordinates were off, and that's why they went to the wrong time period.
It seemed like Archimedes kind of rigged the dial to send them back to that time.
To only come back to that time no matter what. Yeah.
Okay. If that's true, then you're right. The continental drift stuff does not matter at all.
Yeah. Which, whatever. I guess it doesn't really matter because they're all theorizing and stuff like that anyway.
Right.
But I also don't understand, like, what was he was brought back to help them win the war. But
They made a comment in there about how the Dragon, this plane that had been shooting bullets and all that stuff it turned away the invading army.
Oh, that's what it was. So they were scared of this like futuristic thing happening, or like.
Oh, exactly. They thought it was a dragon.
Got it. That's how they won the war. Okay.
Yes, and so that was why they needed the help from the future to win this war and turn away this invading army.
Now I'm wondering, I have like the Wikipedia for the Siege of Syracuse up, and I'm wondering, I didn't read enough of it, but I'm wondering how it actually ended. Like, if it was something that's sort of similar to that, like maybe they got scared by some of their technology or something like that.
Oh, I don't know.
Because it looked like from reading it, they had a lot of crazy like new devices for that war. Anyways,
okay. We're about at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Indiana
I'm not going to get into all that.
Is still bleeding from the chest, and he kind of is making it clear that he doesn't want to go back to the future, right? Teddy's got this second plane, and Wombat is like, we got to get you on the plane. Let's fly back through the portal before it closes. We don't belong in this time, all that stuff. And Indy's like, no, man, this is where I want to be. There's nothing for me back there. I want to die right here. And they go back and forth.
He says, I need to do this. I need to stay here. I need to do this. And she says, me too. And then she punches him.
Punches him in the face, knocks him out cold. And when he wakes up, he's back in his time in the 1950s or 60s? 60s, right? Was when the moon landing happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
69.
69. Thank you. Helena on the table there is Archimedes' dial. So Wombat didn't even steal it to go sell it, even though she could have. And she even invited who back to the party? Who do we see at the very end, Tanner?
Teddy. Teddy's back. Oh. Wait. Oh, you mean Marion? Marion has arrived back.
Marion has arrived. So it looks like she's willing to give their relationship another shot. And Sala is there too, the whole dang family. They kind of do a little replay of that scene where they kiss each other. Like, where does it hurt?
That's kind of, that made me like, I actually teared up a little bit.
I know.
I don't know why. It was like a sweet moment. And like the kiss me, like it doesn't hurt here. And he kisses on his shoulder from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
Or his elbow.
And it was just such a touching little ending. He's back in his own time, and his family has come back to him, and he's going to get to kind of float off into the sunset.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice little moment. Like at the very, very end, they kind of like Helena and the kids or whatever go off and get some ice cream or something and leave Marion and him alone to have that touching moment. And then it kind of pans out of the room on the, what did you call that? Like the balcony or whatever, outside the window.
Yeah.
His hat's sitting there and kind of zooms in on it, and he grabs the hat, and that's how it ends. Like he's not done being Indy yet. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, they're not gonna make another one. No way. But he's a little too old for that.
What do you think they should do with this franchise then? Should we get to that question later, or do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Well, first of all, okay. What'd you think? What'd you think of the movie here?
I mean, I texted you after I saw it, and I thought this movie was really good. I think especially after the last one and all the over-the-top nonsense, like this one felt pretty grounded. The chase scenes were really fun. I enjoyed the actors that they put it, like Mads Mikkelsen and like the other Nazi henchmen were great. I liked what's that lady who played Wombat? Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I thought it was well written, and I really liked those like sentimental touches, like of him kind of coming to terms with Mutt dying and like reconnecting with Marion at the end. I thought it gave it some like emotional weight that certainly the last one didn't have, but like even the first couple, I feel like it did that better than Temple of Doom, or you know, like maybe not Last Crusade, but like certainly better than Temple of Doom. So I thought this movie was really fun. I mean, I think it's good. I thought it was a good movie. What did you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. A lot better than, you know, my expectations. I think after Crystal Skull, it's like, you know, you're not expecting a whole lot necessarily. But I thought the director did a good job, James Mangold, of keeping it like structurally, it felt like a really good Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
All the bits were exciting and fun, and it had the right tone for that. Right. Like, you know, how I thought Crusade was a little too goofy and stuff. Like it had a good mix of the goofy and the action. Like it wasn't like, there was nothing groany in this movie to me. Except for, I didn't love Helena Shaw as like a character. And this is it's the whole like Disney-fied aspect of it.
Sure.
I think the actress is fine, and like her performance was good, and there's elements to her that I did like, but it's kind of like she ends up being like like she knows everything, she solves all the mystery, and like Indy's just kind of like this bumbling old fool, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe they were trying to make another spin-off with her, but either way, it's I don't know. I don't understand why they need to do that. Like shoehorn in some character that we don't really care about. We want to see Indy be the guy who solves everything. And he gets his moments for sure. But she's kind of like this infallible character. You know, she like has no flaws. She's perfect. She knows everything. I don't know. So there's some stuff like that they kind of threw in there.
Sure.
I think that's the Disney effect. Also, like the kid's flying planes and knows how to fly a plane without doing it. It's kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The kidifying of it all.
Had the kid along for the ride just so he could fly the plane in the last scene.
I feel like some of those points were like, hey, you have to make this a part of it. And yeah, exactly. You have to make this part of it. The kid has to do something. The girl has to be like perfect. And then the director did his best with those parameter kind of things. So okay. I feel like he did a really good job, and it was very entertaining. I'm not trying to say it's bad or anything. Because of that, I just am like, I don't know. I want to see Indy be Indy. That's all. Not a bumbling old alcoholic. I
like that though. It was, I don't know. I thought I mean, there was a bunch of time that had passed since the last movie. You know, like 69 was way after the 50s when Crystal Skull was set, and you know, life was hard for him in those years. And you know, this was kind of his redemption song, and I don't know. I think it made him more compelling as a character to have those faults and to have it gone through something so difficult as losing his son, you know, and like losing his wife. But I hear what you're saying for sure.
No, those plot points are good for sure. Like I don't mind making Mutt. I think making Mutt into like an emotional point and killing him off that way because nobody liked him, but like making it an emotional aspect for him was good.
Yeah.
I just wish he was a little bit more like retain some of his like. I mean, he does figure out some of the puzzle stuff, but a lot of it is her doing a lot of that legwork. But he is 80 years old, so
yeah.
I don't know.
he did figure out a lot of the stuff in the
wax.
The Dionysus, he figured out the wax thing, the Dionysus tomb with Archimedes' principle, and with the crescent on the wall. He figured out some stuff, but
that's true. I think it's a similar thing though with Mutt. They're like, oh, they're trying to make him into the replacement, and it's like, are they trying to make her into the replacement? Just like, but nobody really wants or cares about that character yet. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously didn't work out with Mutt, and I don't think it's going to work with this, not because of her or anything, but I think we'll talk about it in a minute. The movie's not doing so hot financially.
Okay.
Overall, I really liked it. I think it's better than Crystal Skull by a large portion.
Yes.
I still think it's my fourth favorite indie movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you want to rank them?
I would love to.
All right. Oh, I wish I had some dramatic music, like a
make a milk sound for us, Tanner.
Well, we're not to the milk portion of the podcast.
You're right.
But here,
there we go. Two on this. Yeah. I think this was my third favorite. Really? I like this one better than Temple of Doom, so I think my order would go Raiders, and then Last Crusade, then this one, and then Temple of Doom, and then Crystal Skull was my least favorite.
Yeah, I'm going Raiders, Crusade, Doom, this one, and then Crystal Skull.
Okay.
And then at the very bottom of that, Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Thank you for including that in your list.
At the top of it all, I'm going with Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine for Nintendo 64.
You're putting that at the very top?
No. No, I'm not ranking all that. Just the movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Temple of Doom has some awesome stuff that I still prefer the practical effects. You can talk about what doesn't hold up culturally or whatever, that they had a few of those moments in there, but I don't think that really takes away from the movie at all. It's also it's a little bit darker and whatever, but I still think there's awesome action and it's super entertaining.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I thought this one, I think, made a modern movie with this storyline, and I just really loved the chase scenes and the action set pieces, and the story. Again, we have this like implausible thing. I bet there's people out there that don't like that he did time travel, but I don't know. The book I read this week does not have any sort of supernatural stuff, and I think it gave me some added appreciation for those elements in these movies. I think you kind of need it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, people. What am I trying to say? People like adventure movies, this movie isn't doing so well, and I think it's because, maybe because of Crystal Skull, or, I don't know, maybe it's the Disney side of things. I don't really know why I don't know why it's not doing so well. It's probably because of Crystal Skull.
It's gotta be, right? All the reviews I read early were or that I saw early, I didn't read any reviews, but all seemed to be pretty complimentary of this movie, and it's Indiana Jones, so I'm surprised that it didn't get more.
Yeah, they made a mistake. They released it at Cannes like 2 months ago or whatever. And it didn't get a great reception. Like, I don't think it was like the worst movie ever, but it didn't get. I don't know. It got a lot of negative internet movement because the reviews weren't great about it.
Okay.
At Cannes, and they really should have just saved it, all the hype, and released it as it. Usually movies don't get reviewed until they come out, right?
Right.
But this one had a bunch of pre-reviews where just kind of whatever. So I think a lot of the excitement was dulled by that. So that was a big mistake on their part. Yeah. anyway.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what can they do with this franchise, and what should they do with it now that it's over, Chris? What do you think?
I mean, Harrison Ford's got to be done, right? We're not getting any more Indiana Jones stuff.
I'm pretty sure he said, when they asked him about can they recast you or something like that, and he said, when I die, the character dies.
Okay.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't think he has
creative control over it like that. I think they could recast him and keep making movies, but I also kind of think they could make I don't know. I feel like they could make a TV show out of it.
Yeah.
And that, then you don't risk having to debut it at Cannes, and so much of everything is through streaming platforms nowadays anyway. They did that with what's the National Treasure movies? Instead of making another movie, they made a younger girl doing National Treasure stuff, and I feel like they could do something like that with this series. But
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they made young Indiana Jones and made it cool. I feel like that might be the pathway forward, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, I think it could do a lot. And keep going. I think it should be recast, and I wish it was under different control, because my problem with the Disney it's like this big corporation. They don't give a shit about these characters, it seems like to me.
Right.
Whereas if it was in better hands, I'd feel more comfortable with them doing something better with it. I feel like the director of the movie and Harrison Ford, they care about the character, so they were able to squeeze out a good movie. But for the most part, the company just wants to make more money out of it,
Yeah.
To a crazy degree. I mean, we saw with Star Wars, it's the same thing. I also get annoyed with the Disney trope of just let's make all our original characters this shitty old man that you don't like anymore, replace them with some young infallible female lead that just replaces and takes over the franchise. And I feel like that excitement, people don't really care or want that necessarily. People didn't like the new Star Wars movies. And I have no problem with it being a female lead or anything like that. I just feel like they have the same formula for all their movies or all the franchises. We're going to make sure that this is the direction that it goes in. And I'm kind of just, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be working. People aren't watching these movies as much. They're losing money on Star Wars and Indiana Jones and all that.
Losing money on Marvel too. Yeah.
Marvel. Yeah. I mean, Guardians was a huge movie, but that's the first one in a while that they've had a big hit with.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just they're spreading their franchises too thin, and I don't know. I hope they just lay off Indiana.
Do you think that's the case with this one though? Because the last Indiana Jones movie didn't come out for a bunch of years. I feel like
no. I just think it could fall into that trap.
Sure. Yeah.
And it hasn't yet, but that's probably because of Harrison Ford, honestly, just having that attitude about it and just being no one else is going to play him. And, the Shia LaBeouf thing not working out. And then, I don't know. Maybe it'll be sold to another company when Disney reaches a low point or something like that. And then it'll go back into some better hands. Because they don't really need Indiana Jones. It's not helping their... Star Wars and Marvel are making them tons of money.
Right.
But Indiana Jones isn't really. So I have hope for it in the future. I think it has a lot of strong qualities that people love, and can and should continue in some way.
It's the classic adventure movie franchise. So I think it'll find its footing someday with somebody else at the helm. I think you're probably right.
Yeah, somebody that really cares about it needs to take over, And
how about you, Tanner? Would you do it?
I'll take over.
Okay, that's very
noble of you. How many billions do I need to buy it? Maybe Drew Barrymore will buy the rights to it.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Just Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about with the franchise going forward? I mean, yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we want to talk about the stuff that we played and read this week?
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
So yeah, this is the milk portion of the podcast.
Oh yeah, baby. Smooth and refreshing.
Talk about the just like where they milk the franchise, basically. The whole theme of the show. And where we read books and play video games and other sorts of IP. Chris, what did you get into this week?
Man,
mine's a little bit. Mine's imitation milk.
So, okay, totally fair. Mine is not. Mine's the real deal. I read a book from 1984. Let me make sure I'm getting that year right. 1984. It's called The Curse of Horror Island. And I picked this for a couple of reasons. It's a choose your own adventure book, which I adore. And it's a knockoff choose your own adventure book. And it's also written by R.L. Stine, who was like one of my favorite authors when I was a kid. So I was really excited to read this, and it's not great. So just a little bit of context. His first horror book wasn't until 1986. So this is before he was anybody. And Goosebumps as a book series, which is what we all know him from, didn't start until 1992. So this is 10 years before he was a known commodity or a famous author. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's.
Didn't they make some Goosebumps Choose books as well?
He did make a few Goosebumps Choose books. And I
reread Choose books. That's a tough phrase to say. Goosebumps Choose books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did like story time during COVID with some of our middle school kids, and so I actually reread one of those during story time, and it was pretty fun. And
do you want to talk about your connection to Choose Your Own Adventure real quick?
Oh yeah, sure. I also I write math books for Choose Your Own Adventure sometimes, and so go check out The Dreg Disaster. That's the first one. So I have experience in the struggles and the challenges that come along with writing a Choose Your Own Adventure book. So I was really excited to read this one, and it took me 3 tries, right? Because you start at the beginning and a bunch of them are death endings. So it took me 3 tries to even get to Horror Island in the title. Like the book starts and you're on like a pier, and
you're on Horror Pier.
Yeah, well, you need to get on a boat with your cousin Indiana Jones. So you're.
Oh wait, you play his cousin.
You play his cousin, his little cousin, and he calls you kid all the time. And it's kind of like a short round Indiana Jones relationship, and and so it took me a while to even get to Horror Island. And then once you got to Horror Island, the storylines that they had for this thing were like natives who shoot arrows at you. There's mercenaries who are also looking for this carved dove. And there's no supernatural element. So it's just you're trying to get this one artifact from this island and escape from the natives, and then also some wildlife stuff, right? Like big alligators and those sorts of things. And it was, I don't know. I don't want to rag on it too hard, but it just really felt like a McDonald's toy. You know what I mean? Where it's like, It's not like a great book. It just really felt like a cash in, and you would really only buy it because of the author or because it's an Indiana Jones book. And it wasn't. I think it just didn't do it for me.
Didn't we see that there's two covers? There's like the original cover, which kind of just, it's like highlighting Indiana Jones big time.
Yes. And then the copy I got is actually highlighting R.L. Stine. It's like highlighting that this is the Goosebumps guy that wrote this book.
And it just has a little circle like with Indiana Jones.
Yeah. He's tiny little triangle with him on the front.
By the way, Indiana Jones is in this.
Yeah, it even says bigger by the author of Goosebumps and 99 Fear Street at the top. Like it's Indiana Jones is like a tertiary character, like I don't know, not really a reason you would buy this book. So I don't know. I didn't love it. I thought it was just pretty boilerplate. I thought the paths that they choose were pretty predictable. And then the endings didn't have anything to do with the supernatural stuff. So it seemed in my head that,
did you find all the endings?
I bet I found about 80% of them. I like to hold my place when I get to an important branch and then kind of go through one of them and then come back and kind of go through it that way. But it was I was a little disappointed. It was definitely like a cash-in book, and they hired an unknown author to write an Indiana Jones Choose Your Own Adventure book. I'm sure he pooped this thing out pretty quick, and then he got famous, I think is kind of the timeline. Not to rag on one of my favorite authors too much, but I would be really curious what he thought.
R.L. Stein is one of your favorites?
As a kid, he was. I loved Goosebumps books, man.
Me too.
Yeah. But
cool.
Anyway, what did you get into this week?
Well, I've got. So we do the milk portion of the show where we talk about the IP milking and the different video games and all that, but also sometimes we're going to talk about the soy milk. It's the same sound effect for soy milk. It sounds just like milk, but it
sounded a little thicker to me, like a little bit.
So it sounds just like milk, but it's not milk. This is the soy milk section. So I focused on like Indiana Jones knockoffs,
like an imitation.
Yeah, the imitations. And I'm not making any claims that soy milk is bad or anything. It's just different. It's based on milk, but it's not milk. It's not a review of milk, or of soy milk. Anyway, so I decided to watch a TV movie from 2004 called The Librarian and the Spear of Destiny.
Oh my.
Yeah. So this is a series of TV movies. There's 3 of them starring Noah Wyle, who was in the show ER in the 90s.
Okay.
So this is about a librarian. So this guy, Noah Wyle, he's like 35 years old, and he's been in college for 18 years or 15 years or something, and has never found a job. And there's these, it's very TV movie-ish, like the set qualities and kind of like the musical cues and stuff like that are very like, feels like a TV show or TV movie. Very cheesy, very cheap. But he's been in school for like 16 years, it said at one point, and he's never had a job, really. He's just in school all the time, which says a lot about the time, which I was thinking like, oh my God, the debt this guy must be in. And there's all these shots of like his mom being like, oh, are you going to get a job or a girlfriend and all these things? So he's this nerdy guy.
What a nerd.
Yeah. And then he tries to go on a date and it doesn't go well. His mom sets him up with some chick, and she finds out he doesn't have a job, so she's out of there. And he ends up going to apply for a job as a librarian, and it's a very strange interview with Jane Curtin from SNL, old original SNL.
And Third Rock from the Sun, right?
Third Rock from the Sun.
Yep.
It's a strange interview, and he kind of goes off about the thing that clues her in. She's like not giving him the time of day, and he's kind of like dorky and awkward, but also very handsome. Like he's way handsomer than the character is described. And then he goes off on this tangent about how he knows like every like little detail about her just by looking at her, like what she ate for breakfast and all these things. And this doesn't creep her out. This like this intrigues her, and she hires him on the spot as this librarian. So basically it's this guy, he gets hired as this librarian, but it's not just any librarian. It's like a special secret society librarian. So he gets a magic letter from the library, says that was like his invite into the interview. And he goes into this secret library where Bob Newhart shows him around his new job. And immediately they show him being involved in like all these like supernaturally kind of Indiana Jonesy things. Now that he's the librarian. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a mix between the Kingsman and Indiana Jones, I would say, where it's like the secret society.
Sure.
But there's things like the Ark of the Covenant is there that they bring up. Pandora's box. There's the Holy Grail. There's the unicorn's horn is there.
Ooh, an alicorn?
Sorry,
sure.
that was what it was called in the book I read last week.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know if that is like exactly referencing Indiana Jones, but it just reminded me of all the things we've talked about. So they bring up all these artifacts that Indiana Jones had been chasing. Clear nod to the franchise, I believe. And he's basically charged with protecting all these things. And the last librarian had been killed. And so now he is the new librarian. And he's got this new job he can't tell his mom about. And basically he goes on an adventure to find a spear of destiny, which was the spear that pierced Jesus on the cross.
So that's a connection to the movie we just watched. Yeah,
exactly. There's even talk about crystal skulls in this movie, which came out before Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So it's referencing all the same artifacts, basically. So he goes on a quest to find it, and he's like, but I can't do it. I'm just a librarian. And there's 3 pieces hidden around the world. They can, like, whoever gets in a hold of this can, like, do whatever they want. And they mention how Hitler only had 1 piece, and look at what he did, kind of thing. So they
even did Nazis.
Well, they mention it as like how powerful this device is, or the spear is, that if you have all 3, you're like, no one can do anything. So anyway, he gets on a plane and they send him to the Amazon jungle where he's got to find the pieces, and some girl, a beautiful British girl, is on the plane, and he meets her, and she totally dismisses him and just, like, treats him like shit. And they had told him to trust no one, so he's like, doesn't know whether to trust her or whatever. But these guys attack, and then she ends up saving the day and, like, beating the shit out of all these guys on the plane, and they parachute out together, and you find out she was there to protect him the whole time. And her name is Nicole No One.
Nicole No One.
Noonie. Noone. So trust no one is her. She's the only one he can trust. Anyway, he's Magoo's his way through this movie.
That's so cheesy. I love it.
That's the basic setup. He Magoo's his way through this movie and just kind of like, bad guy. All the bad guys think he's more capable than he is because of just random dumb luck. But he's super smart.
He's a librarian, bro.
He knows, because he's been in school for 16 years. He, like, knows everything. That's kind of the setup. Is that it's like, I was in college for 16 years. Like well, for example, I forgot everything I learned in college after like 4 years of being out.
Right.
But he remembers everything he's ever learned. It's like, so he's just super smart. And like, this is every insect. He knows what insect it is. Or like he sees a new insect and he's like, this has never been discovered, just by looking at it, briefly. So, there's some temple stuff in there. They find a temple. At one point they have to, they waltz through traps. So there's like a rhythm going, and like, she's like, you hear that rhythm? It's the waltz. And so they literally like dance through these traps. And she dips him at the end to avoid getting his head chopped off, and it's ridiculous. I can't remember. They go to Tibet. Now I'm kind of just going through the rest of it. But she falls. They fall for each other. Now all of a sudden she likes this guy, and he's proving his worth. And Bob Newhart is there again. He seems like he's just there for a paycheck, although it can't be much. At the end of the movie, the guy unites all the pieces, very Indiana Jones style. The full power is realized on the spear, and he starts killing people. And the librarian stops it. So that's that.
All right. I dig it.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I explained a little bit too much of it, but
did you enjoy it? Was it fun?
It was fun. Okay. It was fun. I mean, it's like bad and cheap in a lot of ways, but not hard to describe. It's not like terrible. It just is a TV movie.
Right.
If that makes sense to you, from the early 2000s, where it's just like the effects are really bad and cheesy and like pretty funny, honestly. But like everything's like competent enough. Yeah. And it had 2 sequels. It was a big hit on TV. I remember it being on at the time. And then they made a spin-off series later. So, you know, I would I recommend it? If you're really bored and you really just want to watch all like adventure movies. I brought it up to, I was like, I would just watch The Librarian, and Rachel's like, oh, I love those movies. So she loves them because it's just like a nerdy adventure movie. And I'm sure she saw it when she was young. But
sure.
If you don't care about effects or anything like that, it's fun. I don't know. You might enjoy it.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not going to continue watching it. I'll tell you.
Okay.
That.
Okay.
But it's
and
fun,
this
interesting,
franchise did
obvious
knockoff. Imitators. This is, in the same lineage as Tomb Raider, the same lineage as National Treasure. A lot of things took from Indiana Jones when they kind of stopped making movies.
And
Librarian.
But this is like probably the most blatant
rip-off
that I've ever seen.
Okay.
It's like, he doesn't have the whip, but everything else about it is pretty much just like
copy
same
paste.
exact formula. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like the joke we made in the first week's survey, where it's what other nerdy person, job would have a fun action adventure movie, and they're like, oh, let's do a Librarian. That's
Librarian. Yeah.
The last little bit I'll talk about briefly. I played this Sega Genesis game called Ernest Evans, and it's just really bad. Indiana Jones, he's got a whip and a hat. And
is it Ernest or is it Everest?
It's Ernest Evans.
Ernest Evans. Okay.
It's really just atrocious. Weird like ragdoll physics where you can like crouch and run the same speed when you're crouching. And at one point I found a potion that just put me immediately to sleep on the ground. But there's like a boulder chase scene in it at the end of the first, like you go and you find an artifact through like the first part of the level, whipping everything in sight. And then you get the artifact, you kill a boss, and boulders just like drop like crazy and you have to get out of the level and escape. So a lot of obvious ripoffs there. The cover of the game is just like straight up Indiana Jones. And apparently it's supposed to be like his grandfather was an Indiana Jones type. And now it doesn't matter. But Ernest Evans, the shitty ripoff imitation milk of the week. There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Well, thank you for enduring both of those side projects for us there, Tanner.
Well, luckily I didn't play too much of Evans, maybe a half an hour, and I got the gist.
Yeah.
The Librarian was a fun watch.
Cool. That's great, man.
Low stakes. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about Indiana Jones? Like, this is it. We're done talking Indiana Jones.
We're done. Take our last survey. We're going to have one more Indiana Jones survey in the show notes. And I don't know that I've got anything else. I think we've kind of, we have milked this cow dry, as they say.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, that's a good ending to whenever we finish a franchise.
Oh, I like that. Mm-hmm.
We are milking the franchise ourselves, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Creating content.
This is The Milk, the podcast. You're right. Oh, I will. I learned, I wanted to bring this up earlier. I don't know if it's worth it, but I learned a term called a MacGuffin. Do you know what a MacGuffin is?
Yeah, like it's like a red herring a little bit, right? Like you never see what it is, but it's like a driver of the plot.
Yeah, I guess you can see what it is, but yeah, it's like a device or an object that kind of drives the plot, but like the character likes, or cares about deeply, but like you don't care about, I guess.
Okay.
And kind of.
I've always heard it explained using Pulp Fiction. They've got that suitcase that glows when you open it.
That's a MacGuffin.
Yeah, because you never find out what's in it, and the characters really want it.
I was trying to figure out the etymology of the MacGuffin, but I couldn't figure it out exactly. But George Lucas believed MacGuffins that we should care about it. So all the Indiana Jones MacGuffins, that's the thing he's searching for, basically.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where it is.
And when you have all of history to play with, there's a lot of fun MacGuffins you can go find.
Too many MacGuffins.
Mm-hmm. Too many MacGuffins. That's our next podcast right there.
Yeah, we'll just talk about MacGuffins throughout history.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay tuned. I think we're going to do Jaws next. Lots of different IP to talk about there. Shark Week is coming up soon, so we might have to check out some Discovery Channel Shark Week.
Get your chum ready.
Get your chum ready.
Mm-hmm.
And your chums, gather your friends around and listen to Milking the Podcast or Milking the Franchise podcast.
Absolutely.
What's this thing called?
Milking the Tanner.
Milking the Chris.
That's it.
See you later. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.